again, viewers and friends. This is Atama's Review Corner, Season 2, Episode 6. This review, as always, is made possible and thanks to the Xbox 360 and its Avatar Connect Fun Labs app. I am your digital host, Atama Darkening. And today, I will be reviewing Final Fantasy XIII for the Xbox 360. Let's grab a gunblade and jump right onto a chocobo as we ride off for a final review of another fantasy. The story of the game is the player starts off as Lightning, who is on a mission to save her branded sister in Cocoon, which is part of the world known as Grand Pulse. And Lightning was herself a former soldier of Cocoon, who now is trying to survive the purging, as those people are also branded by contact with something that came from Pulse. Most of the events are told within flashbacks leading up to the previous 13 days. As per Final Fantasy, Lightning meets others who are then branded along with her at the same time by a Fal'cie, a godlike creature, and must find out the truth behind the government known as the Sanctum, and find a way to stop themselves from either turning into monsters or crystals. This is the 13th installment to the main Final Fantasy series, having many spin-offs, as well as eventually having direct sequels to certain Final Fantasy universes, such as the case with Final Fantasy IV, 7, 10, and soon to be 13. This game is done by the company Square Enix. At one time, Squaresoft. They later merged with another company, Enix, who was known for the Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest series, known as in America, to form Square Enix. Recently, they have also purchased Eidos, who was popular for the Tomb Raider series and the recent success of Batman Arkham Asylum and the recent release of Arkham City. Final Fantasy does apparently seem to drop a lot of its well-known series staples. However, the story and battles stay intact, especially for those who are used to the series, or living around the Asian continent. They will be very used to the types of the story that Square Enix presents. However, if the player is more used to the Western type of games and how the stories and combat are told, then it could be a little too much for them. This time, the series doesn't just focus on one character and have companions who follow in the cause, but more like every playable character each has a bond they all share, followed by spreading it all out as the story continues seamlessly. Switching between perspectives of certain characters, they will split up from time to time into their own little groups to accomplish bigger goals, all relating to the rest. The players may only control one character at a time in this 13th edition, but they may choose between the 6 members at any time. At least at some point they can, by having them as leader of the party. These 6 characters are Lightning, Snow, Vanille, Zaz, Hope, and Fang. Even though the players may only control one of these 6 characters at any time, what defines them is what they do in battle. How this is determined is their roles, which are the equivalent to Final Fantasy's job system. There are also 6 roles, which are comprised of Commando, the Warrior type class, Ravager, the Black Mage type, Medic, the healer of the group, Saboteur, and Synergist, who are the stat changers in respectively. One lowers the enemy's premise and the other strengthens the party, and Sentinel, or tank of the group. By the end of the game, or after the game to be more precise, the players will finally have all roles unlocked for the whole party, rather than just certain roles for some characters. The combat system may just be one of the most complex and confusing systems I've had the pleasure of playing in a Final Fantasy. But personally, that is also what can make it so enjoyable. When it can be mastered by the player, of course. At least in my opinion, I found this combat quite enjoyable in the long run. However, for some, the combat will be very enjoyable, and for others, it will seem or may be impossible to learn or want to learn. This is also one of the big issues, as this may keep more of the casual or beginning gamers away. In this battle system, the players place the roles mentioned together with different combinations up to 3 different characters, which also happen to be the max for the party in battle. This is called the paradigms. Each character can then switch between these 3 different set roles that the player may give to that one character, so that they may change up the tactics and give different variant roles within a battle. This is called a paradigm shift, and it is crucial to shift between different roles constantly to survive, or at least that's how it felt to me. Also, if an opponent is staggered or dazed while giving massive damage to them, then the enemies are easier to take down and may even be juggled in the air so that they never come down and eventually die. Though this doesn't always work, and staggering becomes needed later on to even do anything serious to certain enemies or bosses. The sphere grid does return from Final Fantasy X into 13, but it is done a bit differently, now with it being called the XIII system. This is just basically an easy way of saying, here is some different ways to branch a character and make them however you want, even though they really isn't many options in most cases. However, in the long run, if the player wants all of the achievements, they must grind out every role to its max in the XIII grid for that of every character, and it must be done for all of the characters and their 6 roles. A big issue that I had, though, with the combat system is that if the character that the player gets to control dies for any reason whatsoever, then it's game over. It doesn't even matter if the player has the best healer and stat booster in the party, or even the best combo with the 3 characters. It'll still result in an instant game over. Especially when it comes to a certain boss fight towards the end of the game. One particular reoccurring boss, who has the ability to cast Doom and kill off the main character that they are controlling. Other than feeling like the enemies took the back door and cheapest way to defeating me, it still can be a very fun and satisfying battle system. Yet, one of the biggest problems with this installment has to be that it's 85%, if not more, linear, really taking away from what players of Final Fantasy wanted and expected, which was freedom to go and do what they wanted, making some gamers, especially of the series, quite upset. Sometimes it feels so linear that they might as well put it on as a rail shooter, but with an RPG battle system. And a lot of what made Final Fantasy is gone, including one of the biggest parts, the mini-games. Sure, there were some, but it felt like there was not enough, and I was one who extremely enjoyed all the mini-games put into each Final Fantasy series. Thankfully, hardcore players of the series had complained a lot to Square Enix, and it seems like they might have listened, I believe. Even to the point of starting to realize that what they did wrong and it is one of the biggest things to be fixed, hopefully in the direct sequel of Final Fantasy XIII-2. However, even if I did agree with most comments from the hardcore fans, being one myself, I still quite enjoyed and got sucked into the story and how the game progresses in what I believe to be very harmonically and is what I grew up liking in the Final Fantasy series. The story. What most gamers tend to miss out on sometimes these days in gaming. A very good story, or even one at all. And the battle system, once I had mastered it enough, along with the story, made me not pay much attention. That there was a lot of linear paths till later. Lastly, even though most fans may not be used to a linear type Final Fantasy, it still may make for a good starting point into the Final Fantasy universe, or JRPG type games for beginners. Well, again, except maybe for the combat. And finally, the summons this time around have some awesome and beautiful entrances, matching up with their character counterparts. However, it felt as if the summons weren't really needed throughout the journey. If at all. It was really only needed for some of the few optional bosses, if only to be able to inflict any sort of damage on them after the summon had staggered them. Some of the music is just okay this time around. It's not really the worst, but neither is it more memorable than some of the other Final Fantasies that have been done. This could also be possibly attributed to the fact that for the first time in a mainstream Final Fantasy, Nobuo Uematsu, or something around there, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, was not directly involved in any of the major music, giving it more of a Western vibe. There is, however, one song in particular that I really enjoyed and felt it worked great with the ending, giving a lot of emotions to the finale, and that song was My Hands by Leona Lewis. However, there are still some really good tracks, as any Final Fantasy has had. Voice acting is not just alright this time around, but it is hardly impossible to see any difference between the dubbing over from the Japanese voice movements to English. Which, of course, is also a big improvement to what my voice does with the Avatar, as it's not perfect. But in 13, it definitely is. Anyway, back on the subject, Square Enix really seemed to take and put a lot of time and effort into both the sounds and voices heard in, around, and throughout the game. However, this is not the only place they put a lot of time into. The character models, which are equally excellently done, along with the environment that the Final Fantasy XIII throws the players, was giving a simple, awe-inspiring moment every now and then. This especially can be seen if the player happens to have a nice, big, HD-type TV. They will truly be able to see every little beautiful detail that the creators put in their graphics and character models. To summarize, and to add, some of the best features are stunning visuals, a strategic battle system experience, and great character development that allows the player to possibly get attached to the characters, along with an intriguing story, which really help to bring the world to life. And then some of the bad things about the game are, it is far too linear. Hardcore fans may dislike the direction the series is heading, as well as the time it takes the game to fully come up to the standards of the fans, and lack of towns to explore and interact with. Lastly, for those who like achievements or only play the game for achievements, this game has 13 story-related achievements, along with a house of different achievement types to do or acquire. However, achievements will not be easy to master right away, and does involve lots of leveling and grinding, along with countless hours of it going back and forth, repeating the same area or monsters again and again. The hardest achievement the player may run into is actually a tie. Or at least in my opinion, they are. They are Treasure Hunter, which is holding every item and accessory in the game. The only real reason for this one is because you can't get rid of one unique item, nor in some players' cases, upgrading more than one weapon to the same final form and getting rid of one of the rare weapons, losing the acknowledgement of having it at all. It is best to just keep every item and accessory until the achievement pops up. And the second hardest achievement? Master Seal. If only for the fact that every role for every character must be maxed out fully and can get very boring and repetitive for some who hate level grinding. There are no online achievements. On a scale of how difficult it is to acquire all the achievements, from 1 to 10, I would give this game an 8. For its ability to make almost every achievement outside of the story achievements a seemingly endless barrage of grinding, but still being able to perfect the game. If the player watches what they do on certain achievements and has the patience to do all of it. Although, compared to its MMO Final Fantasy XI, which people who have played this to try to get all the achievements will definitely know that 13 looks like child's play compared to that of 11. Also, to note, the game is not a rental, or at least, in my opinion, it doesn't feel like it. Whether the gamer plans on perfecting the achievements or just want to try to enjoy the story, it will take some time to complete. So, in conclusion, unless given the time to let the game get good, which can be mostly after the 25-hour or 30-hour mark, players will look at it and be truly disappointed, especially the longtime fans. Too bad, however, most will have given up at this point before the time is needed. If the player does choose to stick past the time, they may get rewarded with the story, battle system, and ending. Which, in my opinion, is when Final Fantasy XIII really starts coming into its own. Does Square Enix have what it takes to keep the series going, or is the bigger, more new companies like BioWare and Bethesda the new kings of the Western continent? When it comes to RPGs, only time will tell. However, at the end of the day, Final Fantasy XIII is a unique new RPG-type experience, and may just have what it takes to thrive. The final score for Final Fantasy XIII is 8.3 out of 10. So, until next time, come back to Atama's Review Corner, Season 2, Episode 7, for the introduction of Bella Love to the show. And remember, keep gaming and reaching for those achievements in games and life.